Welcome to Tech Notice. In this video we're going to be checking out this gaming motherboard over here. This is the MSI MEG x570s Ace Max. Very confusing, but very good for the creators, especially because it's got a lot of interesting features, and one of them being it's not got just 2 M.2 slots or 3 or 4 or 5, it's got 6 M.2 storage slots in there, and they're all Pcie 4.0 capable. That's insane. Let's talk about it.
Licensing Windows has never been easier and cheaper. Go to whokeys.com, search for Windows 10 Pro license, or click on the link in the video description below. Purchase the license and use the code TN20 to get a 20% discount. Paste the key into the activation settings and you're all done. By the way, this license also works for Windows 11 when upgraded from licensed Windows 10. Check out whokeys.com in the video description below.
So if you're familiar with these motherboards, then you might have noticed that this x570 MEG Ace Max, actually there is one out there already, but this one is x570s. So with just x570, that's the older chipset that has a chipset fan over here. You'll see that in a moment, but this one is with the silent chipset. But they also changed the design a little bit, and I think it just is very interesting. And you might be also wondering, why are you making like Ryzen motherboard videos if Intel like 12th gen is out now and Ryzen's moving on to like a new platform as well soon in 2022. The reason I'm making this video about this motherboard is because Ryzen chips for the 5000 series are now dropping in value like quite quickly, and whoever's going to jump to the next platform, it's going to be a little bit unstable and, you know, new things, and it's going to be more expensive. But the 5000 series is going to be very affordable, or suddenly becomes more affordable. People who want to maybe upgrade from 2000 series or 3000 series of Ryzen processors, or even 1000 series Ryzen processors, or maybe even some Intel other generation platforms, then this could be a very interesting motherboard. So let's have a look what's inside. First of all, it comes with a handle. Not all of the motherboards come with a handle, but high-end MSI motherboards come with a handle. So let's have a look what's inside the box. By the way, you created with this nice MEG. So first of all, we have the user manual, very helpful guide when building a PC. We have a Wi-Fi antenna, and what I want to know is, has MSI changed their Wi-Fi antenna's design? Because I have the previous version and I don't like it at all. So let's have a look. No, still the same. Oh, it's not the same. They've changed it. They've added magnets. It actually gets stuck to your PC case. Thanks very much, MSI. Then underneath over here we have 2 SATA cables. One straight, one angled cable. There's 2 more. Okay, we have a USB stick. This is where probably all the drivers and BIOS and things are on. Very helpful thing if you want to update your BIOS, for example. You just put your new BIOS in there and you can update it over here. Let's have a look what's underneath here. Whoa, look at all this stuff in here. Okay, you get your money's worth. So we have some screws for the heat sinks. We have some standoffs for the M.2s and the M.2 screws. Some more standoffs and screws. Look at that, it's like a keyhole screwdriver. There's a flat and like a Phillips head. Very interesting. I've never seen that on a motherboard before. Then we have some more screws for the standoffs and M.2 storage basically. And then what on earth is this? Look at that. You have a little brush if you want to like clean your motherboard off duster. You just brush it off. That's really cool. There's some more cables over here. MSI gives you a ton of stuff. So that's a 12 volt ARGB like a splitter head. So one head goes to the motherboard, and then you have one or like 2 connectors in there. So if you want to split the header on the motherboard, you have the splitter cable. We have a thermal probe. We have another thermal probe. This is, I think, the Corsair RGB header extension. It looks like a 3-pin PWM connector, but it isn't. No, that is the Corsair one. Okay, so the cable that changes it from Corsair header to the 5 volt normal header from all the RGB tools that you might have. This is the M.2 expansion card. So basically, inside this card there is 2 slots. This add-on card supports up to PCIe 4.0 bandwidth, whereas the transfer speed might be limited by the processor and the chipset. Depends on your chipset and your processor, but in our case, they will be running like full flat X4, you know, slots over here, because this is X8 and you can split it, so you'll have two M.2 like inside there, and you can have like full PCIe 4.0 bandwidth of this one, which is very, very cool that this gets added with your motherboard as well, because usually you pay extra for that. And then you've got some like cables for this to connect like the HDD and J case, and you know, underneath that card we have an MSI badge. That's very cool. Some stickers, assortment cable stickers. Yeah, pretty cool. So let's have a look at this motherboard over here then. First of all, design, it's pretty cool. We have a dragon over here that's like RGB lit up, and as well as this like logo over here. I'm not a big fan of this dragon stuff. I'm more into like minimal design things that have maybe some shapes rather than actual logos of, you know, dragons, but you know, some people might like it. I do like the golden black design. The heat sinks are very nice and black as well, like a brushed type of metal kind of finish over here. We have big VRAM heat sinks over here. This is 16+4 power stages, very impressive. We have two 8-pin EPS power connectors for the CPU. We've got some PWM connectors over here. As you can see, 3 on the top over here, and then we have 4, 5, 6 on the bottom over here, and then 7 underneath this corner over here, and then there's 8 over here as well, so 8 altogether. But the thing is, that's why you have this manual, because not all of these headers are exactly the same. Some of these, like the CPU fan over here and the pump fan over here, are 3 amperes and 36 watts, whereas the other system fans are basically only 2 amperes and 24 watts, you know, power capable. So if you have like a water cooled system, or you want to have a custom loop over here, you've got some high-end, you know, actual pump headers over here if you want to pump that, as well as a water flow meter that's on the bottom over here. Over here we have the postcode error code over here, which if your PC is on, will show you the CPU temperature, but if the CPU has some kind of error, it will show you an error code. Very helpful to, you know, diagnose your errors and things like that. We have some RGB headers over here. This is a 5 volt over here, and then we have another 5 volt down here, and then you have this 12 volt RGB connector on the bottom over here. And remember I was saying about the Corsair header over here? This is the Corsair header over here. You can change this into a 5 volt RGB header as well with the cable that's inside there. We have a USB-C front panel connector over here. This is 10 gigabits in speed rated. We have another USB type A connector over here, and this is 5 gigabits in speed rated. 8 SATA ports over here, but depends how many slots you're gonna fill out with the M.2. You might lose some of them over here. We have a power button and reset button actually built into the motherboard. You have 2 USB 2.0 headers over here. You have some like thermal probes and sensor headers, lots of them over here. This is a BIOS switch, which I'm not sure what that does, but this over here is the LED switch. So there's 2 switches on the motherboard, physical switches. This is BIOS, this is LED. And then that's pretty much the headers. Obviously we have the AM4 socket. The interesting thing with this is that the RAM slots are actually much closer to the sockets than usual. You might notice that this space between here isn't as long. Basically, just if you didn't know, the closer the RAM slots are to the socket, the lower latency you have for, you know, between the RAM communication and CPU communication, which results in higher performance. Not that big of a deal for creators, but it does make a difference in the end, so every little counts. Because they're closer to the socket, you might be limited with some of the coolers you might want to use with this one. For example, some of the downdraft coolers have a very like large bottom heatsink, so you might not be able to mount it like it's meant to be mounted. If you have an AIO, it's not going to be a problem. It might be a problem with some of the air coolers. Let's have a look at some of these heatsinks then over here. So looking at the heatsinks, it's pretty impressive thermal pads over here. So all of these slots have double-sided thermal pads on the top and on the bottom to keep your SSDs cool. Not all of them are full slots, but hey. So the top slot over here obviously is linked with the CPU, whereas all the rest of them are from the chipset. So you can see that the top slot over here is long, and then the third slot is long, but the second and the fourth slot are short. So let's talk about the PCIe lanes and how these label, because when you're planning your build, and depends what you're gonna plan to use this, basically, on the bottom line, you can't get every single spec that you can see here at full fat speed. You know, you can't get full PCIe 4.0 speed of these and then have all SATA SSD drives while having 16 slot over here and having X8 slot over here. That doesn't work. The switch is all over here. So let's have a look. So basically the front M.2 SSD over here and this top PCIe slot and this second PCIe slot over here, they are from the CPU. If you have a graphics card on the first slot and M.2 over here, it's 4 lanes and 16 lanes over here. If you have a second graphics card over here or the M.2 expansion card on this second slot over here, then the first slot is going to drop down to X8 slot. So both of these are then X8 slots, and that's how you can get X4 and X4 slots for the M.2 drives that are on the expander card over here. Then this second slot over here is always full speed X4 from this chipset. This third slot over here shares bandwidth with the bottom slot over here. And also this bottom M.2 shares bandwidth with this bottom slot over here as well. But that means that you're not gonna get these two SSDs over here. If you wanna have these two SSDs, then you're gonna lose this slot on the very bottom over here. And also if you have this fourth slot of M.2 over here, you're gonna lose a SATA 5, 6, 7 and 8. So then you're only gonna have 1 to 4 SATA ports on the bottom over here. So I think if you're a creator who runs one GPU in your system, then you're gonna be fine. You know, you can put your GPU in here, you can have extra M.2s over here. You have 4 M.2 slots. If that isn't enough, you can have the expansion card over here as well and have extra 2 M.2 slots. But I think for most people, 4 M.2s are completely fine. Now let's start looking at the I/O of this motherboard. On the top over here, we have USB ports over here. These are USB 2.0 and there's 4 of them. Also, you can see BIOS flashback USB port over here. You can update the BIOS without having a CPU or compatible CPU. You can just update the BIOS with a USB stick and this button over here. Boom. Clear seamless button on the top over here as well. Then we have these blue USB type A ports. These are 5 gigabits in speed. And then you can see some more red ports over here. So we have 1, 2, 3 red ports and they are 10 gigabits in speed. And then there's one USB type C port over here, which is actually 20 gigabits in speed rated. So it's USB 3.2 Gen 2 X2 slot. So there's only one in this motherboard. You have Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2 antenna ports over here. Then you have an optical output and then lots of inputs, outputs for your jacks and speakers and so on. And last of all, 2.5 gigabit LAN. Now I would love to have a 1 gigabit LAN over here as well, just to have like one internet coming in and then all your Bluetooth devices and stuff. If you have a mouse and keyboard, they can be on this over here, and then have 2.5 gig for like your NAS or something like that. But I think it's interesting over here if, for example, you use Wi-Fi for your internet and you have a NAS 2.5 gig, that's plenty of connection over here to connect everything. I also kind of like the MSI design of just laying out USB ports like flat out, like blocks of like a apartment blocks over here. Obviously we have 4 RAM slots over here. They can have up to 128 gigabytes of RAM over here. Lots of speeds, it's very capable in all the XMB speeds and stuff like that, and very good at overclocking, all sort of jazz. But for creators, why this pod might be interesting is all of this M.2 storage. I know the MSI Unify has 4 slots over here as well, but you get an expansion card with this one, which is new. You have a silent heatsink over here. Whoa, someone forgot to screw the chipset heatsink screws in. That's a thing to check actually, because if they would have not been screwed in, this heatsink is not actually going to take any of the heat out. So that's not going to be so good. I'm glad I saw this to fix it. You have your silent heatsink over here. You have plenty of USB connectivity, plenty of M.2 storage, but the only things that are missing over here are like, 10 gigabit NAS. You could put it over here, but the thing like this slot over here also shares bandwidth with Wi-Fi. But what I want to know from you is, would this be interesting to you as a creator? Let me know in the comment section below. Or what features are missing as a creator? What are killer features? As always, likes if you enjoyed this video, subs if you'd like to see more, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.